$500,000 in a beautiful pre-construction condo in Mexico, only to realize months later that nobody explained the questions you should have asked before signing. Not because the project was necessarily bad, not because anyone was trying to deceive you, but because buying pre-construction isn't about choosing the right floor plan only, or the best ocean view, or even the lowest price. It's about understanding what you're actually buying. It's about evaluating the developer, understanding the contract, knowing how construction works, recognizing potential risk, and making one of the biggest financial decisions of your life with confidence instead of uncertainty. After helping Americans and Canadians buy property in Puerto Vallarta for more than 12 years, I have noticed something. The buyers who enjoy the process the most are rarely the ones who found the cheapest deal. They are the buyers who understood exactly what they were buying before they invested, and that's exactly why I created this video. Today, I am going to share the same evaluation framework I personally use before recommending any pre-construction development to my clients. Not because every project is risky. Actually, I love pre-construction. Some of my clients have created significant wealth because they purchased the right project at the right moment. But I have also learned something equally important. Every opportunity comes with responsibility. And responsibility starts with asking better questions. Today, I'm going to share the 7 principles that immediately make me slow down before recommending any development, because my goal is never to help you buy faster. My goal is to help you buy smarter. Hello, I am Nancy Valiente. I am a Puerto Vallarta real estate advisor and an attorney. And I created this series because after helping foreign buyers for many years, I realized something. Most Americans and Canadians aren't looking for someone to simply show them beautiful properties. They are looking for someone who can help them understand how buying property in Mexico actually works. Because when you understand the process, you make better decisions, and better decisions usually lead to better investments. Every week in this series, I will answer one of the questions foreign buyers ask me before investing in Mexico. Questions about contracts, pre-construction, closing costs, fideicomisos, rental income, developer due diligence, and everything you should understand before making one of the biggest investments of your life. So if your goal is to buy property in Mexico with confidence, you are in the right place. Before we begin, I want to explain something. Over the years, I realized I wasn't evaluating developments the same way most people were. I wasn't only looking at the building. I wasn't only looking at the finishes or the amenities or the location. Without realizing it, I had developed my own evaluation framework. Today, for the first time, I am sharing that framework publicly. I call it the Valiente Method. It isn't based on fear. It isn't based on finding reasons not to buy. It's based on asking better questions before you invest. Because I believe something very simple. Buying property in Mexico shouldn't feel like taking a leap of faith. It should feel like making an informed decision. Let's begin. Principle 1. They avoid answering important questions. Imagine you are sitting inside a beautiful sales gallery. The presentation is impressive. The renderings are beautiful. The rooftop looks spectacular. The salesperson is excited. Everything feels perfect. Then you ask a simple question. May I review the purchase contract? Silence. Or perhaps the answer is, don't worry about that. Everybody signs the same contract. We will send it later. The legal part is just standard. Whenever I hear answers like that, I don't panic, but I immediately slow down. Not because I assume something is wrong, but because transparency is one of the strongest indicators of a healthy transaction. A serious buyer should be able to ask serious questions. For many people, this is one of the largest financial decisions they will ever make. Now, let me clarify something. A delayed answer is not automatically a red flag. Sometimes the sales representative simply doesn't have the answer. Sometimes they need to confirm information internally. That's perfectly normal. The concern begins when important questions continue to go unanswered or when answers keep changing. Consistency builds confidence. Changing stories create uncertainty. When I don't receive a clear answer, I don't argue. I simply become more specific. Instead of asking, is everything okay with the project? I will ask, may I see the construction permit? Could you explain this clause in the contract? Can you send me the latest construction schedule? Specific questions are much harder to avoid than general ones. One thing I always tell my clients is this. If I am about to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, I should never feel uncomfortable asking reasonable questions, and neither should you. Principle 1, transparency builds confidence. Now let's move to principle number 2. This is one of my favorites because I see buyers misunderstand this all the time. Principle 2, promises without documentation. Imagine you are visiting a beautiful presentation center. The salesperson tells you, well, we have a rooftop restaurant. The HOA should be only around $300 a month. The finishes will be luxury quality. You will have beach club access. The ocean view will always be protected. Wonderful. Now, I ask one question. Where is that documented? Is it written in the contract? It is included in the specifications? Is there an official attachment? Or was it simply mentioned during the sales presentation? One of the biggest lessons I have learned as an attorney is this. Good documentation creates clear expectations. Poor documentation creates misunderstandings. Now, I am not suggesting anyone is intentionally misleading buyers. Sometimes, salespeople genuinely believe certain things will happen, but if something is important enough to influence your buying decision, I want to see it reflected in the documentation. Because documents don't rely on memory. Documents establish expectations. One thing I constantly evaluate is consistency. Does the marketing match the specifications? Do the specifications match the contract? Does the contract reflect what was presented during the sales process? When everything is consistent, I feel much more comfortable moving forward. One of my favorite phrases is this. If it's important enough to convince you to buy, it's important enough to be documented. Because good developments don't rely on good memories. They rely on good documentation. Principle 2, documentation protects expectations. If you are currently evaluating a pre-construction development in Puerto Vallarta or anywhere in Mexico, you are not completely sure what questions you should be asking, or maybe you have already received a contract, but you would like someone to review it before you sign? That's exactly what I help my clients do. As both a Puerto Vallarta real estate advisor and an attorney, I help foreign buyers understand the contract, identify potential risks, evaluate the development objectively, and make informed decisions before investing. If you would like to schedule a private consultation, you will find my contact information in the description below. And now, let's continue with principle number 3. Principle 3. The timeline doesn't match reality. Let's talk about one of the first questions almost every buyer asks. When will my condo be delivered? Imagine someone tells you, we will deliver this project in 12 months. Sounds great. Now, I immediately begin asking more questions. Has excavation already started? Has the structural work begun? How many levels are being built? How many units are included in the project? Have all permits already been issued? Has the construction schedule been updated recently? Because here is something that I have learned after many years working in Puerto Vallarta real estate. Construction timelines are projections, not warranties. That doesn't mean the developer is dishonest. Construction is simply one of the most complex industries in the world. Unexpected situations happen, whether materials shortages, labor availability, government inspections, utility connections, permit processes. Every one of those factors can affect a construction schedule. That's why I never look for the fastest delivery date. I look for the most realistic one. Now, here is something even more important. Many buyers remember the delivery date from the presentation, but they never compare it with the contract. Sometimes the contract includes a grace period. Sometimes it defines circumstances that legally extend the construction period. Sometimes buyers don't realize those clauses even exist. That's why I always tell my clients, don't memorize the brochure, understand the contract. There is another mistake I see very often. Buyers build their entire financial plan around the estimated delivery date. Maybe they are paying a mortgage back home. Maybe they are planning to retire. Maybe they are expecting rental income immediately after completion. If your financial stability depends on receiving your property on one exact date, you are creating unnecessary pressure for yourself. One thing I always recommend is having a financial cushion. Hope for the best. Prepare for possible delays. That isn't being pessimistic, it's being financially responsible. Because confidence doesn't come from believing everything will go perfectly. Confidence comes from understanding what could happen and being prepared if it does. Principle 3, don't look for the fastest timeline. Look for the most realistic one. Now, let's talk about something almost nobody asks. Until there is a problem, principle 4, understand the rules before you need them. One of the biggest mistakes I see buyers make is focusing only in the purchase price. Very few buyers spend enough time understanding what happens if something doesn't go according to plan. But that's exactly why contracts exist, not for the best case scenario, for the unexpected. Before I recommend any development, I always want to understand one thing. What happens if either party doesn't fulfill their obligations? Let's start with the developer. If construction is delayed, does the contract include a grace period? How long is that grace period? When do penalties begin? How are they calculated? Do they apply automatically? Or does the buyer need to formally request them? Now, let's look at the buyer. What happens if you miss a payment? Is there interest? Are there late fees? Could the developer terminate the agreement? Could you lose part of your deposit? How much notice must be given before any of those things happen? These aren't negative questions, they are responsible questions, because responsible buyers understand the rules before they need them. One phrase I often tell my clients is this: I am not looking for penalties because I expect problems. I am looking for penalties because I want to understand the rules before problems happen. The clearer those rules are, the fewer surprises you will have later. Another thing, always verify is whether those obligations are balanced. A contract doesn't have to be identical for both parties, but I do want to understand whether the obligations make sense, whether they are clearly explained, and whether my client understands them before signing. Remember, contracts don't prevent problems, but they do explain how problems should be handled. That's a very important difference. Principle 4, understand the rules before you need them. Now we have reached a principle that I believe separates emotional buyers from informed buyers. Principle 5, never let someone else's urgency become your urgency. Imagine you have finally found the condominium you have been dreaming about. The salesperson smiles and says, "This is our last available unit. Several buyers are interested. If you don't reserve today, you will probably lose it." Immediately, you feel pressure, and that's completely normal. Urgency creates emotion. Now, let me be very clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with placing a reservation deposit. Many developments ask buyers to reserve a unit with a refundable deposit while documentation is being prepared. That's a normal part of many pre-construction transactions. The red flag doesn't begin there. The red flag begins when you are expected to sign a legally binding contract before you have had enough time to perform meaningful due diligence. One thing that I've learned after reviewing contracts for many years is this: due diligence isn't simply reading a contract, it's understanding the entire transaction. That may include reviewing the purchase agreement, construction permits, specifications, developer history, payment schedules, warranty provisions, HOA information, construction timelines, and every question that naturally arises during that review. Sometimes buyers tell me, "Nancy, they are asking me to sign this week." My first question is always, have you had enough time to understand what you're signing? Those are two completely different things, signing quickly and signing confidently. Every project is different. Some developments require very little clarification. Others deserve much deeper analysis. The important thing isn't the number of days. The important thing is having enough time to make an informed decision, not an emotional one. One of my favorite principles is this: buying quickly should never be more important than buying wisely. Principle 5, never let someone else's urgency become your urgency. If someone tells you you can review the contract later, everybody signs this, there is no need for legal review, I don't automatically assume it's a bad project. If you have already reserved a unit or you have received a contract and you are feeling overwhelmed by the legal language, you are not alone. Many of my clients come to me at exactly that stage. They simply want someone to answer questions like, what am I actually signing? Is this clause reasonable? What should I negotiate before moving forward? As both a Puerto Vallarta real estate advisor and an attorney, I help foreign buyers understand the transaction before they become legally committed. If you would like an independent opinion before making your final decision, you will find my contact information in the description below. Now, let's finish with the two principles that, in my opinion, every serious investor should understand before buying pre-construction in Mexico. We have talked about transparency, documentation, realistic timelines, contracts, and due diligence. Now, let's talk about something most buyers never investigate: the company behind the project. Because here is something I want you to remember. You are not simply buying a condominium. You are trusting a company to deliver that condominium. And those are two very different decisions. Principle 6. Trust the developer but verify everything. One of the biggest mistakes buyers make is believing that a beautiful presentation automatically means a great developer. Those aren't the same thing. Beautiful renderings are easy, beautiful brochures are easy, beautiful marketing is easy. Delivering a project, that's the difficult part. When I evaluate a development, I don't only evaluate the building, I evaluate the company behind the building, because companies have habits, they have systems, they have communication styles, they have values, and those things usually become visible when something unexpected happens. Notice I didn't say when everything goes perfectly, I said when something unexpected happens, because that's when you truly discover how an organization operates. Now, I am not looking for a perfect developer. I don't believe perfect developers exist. Construction is complex. Unexpected situations happen. Weather changes, supply chains change, labor shortages happen, permits take longer than expected. Those things happen everywhere in the world. The question isn't, has this developer ever experienced a challenge? The better question is, how did they respond when challenges appeared? Did they communicate? Did they keep buyers informed? Did they explain delays? Did they respond to warranty claims? Did they finish what they promised? Would previous buyers purchase from them again? Those answers tell much more than any sales presentation ever will. One thing I always tell my clients is this: past performance doesn't guarantee future results, but it tells you how a company behaved when buyers trust them with their money. That's valuable information. So before investing, ask questions, visit previous developments, talk to previous owners, read reviews carefully, understand how the developer communicates, because trust should never replace due diligence. Trust should be supported by it. Principle 6, trust should always be supported by verification. Now we have reached what I believe is the most important principle of all, because this principle has nothing to do with construction, nothing to do with contracts, nothing to do with permits. It has everything to do with you. Principle 7, you know your exit strategy before you buy. Here is something very few buyers think about. Everyone plans how they are going to buy. Almost nobody plans what happens afterward. Before I recommend any investment, I ask one question: what happens if life changes? Because life always changes. Retirement dates change. Health changes. Family situations change. Financial priorities change. And sometimes dreams change. So before you buy, ask yourself, if I decide to sell before delivery, can I assign my contract? Are there assignment fees? Are there restrictions? If I decide to keep the property, will I rent it? Who will manage it? What are the carrying costs? What happens if rental income is lower than expected? If I eventually retire here, will this property still fit my lifestyle 10 years from now? Those aren't pessimistic questions. They are strategic questions. The best investors don't only prepare for success, they prepare for change. Because flexibility is part of a good investment. One of my favorite sayings is this: buying is only one chapter of the story. Owning the property is the chapter that lasts the longest. Think beyond closing. Think beyond delivery. Think about the next 5 years, the next 10 years, maybe even the next 20, because today's decision creates tomorrow's opportunities. Principle 7, the best investment isn't the one with the biggest discount. It's the one that still makes sense when your life changes. Let's quickly review the Valiente Method. Principle 1. Transparency builds confidence. Principle 2. If it's important enough to convince you to buy, it's important enough to be documented. Principle 3. Don't look for the fastest timeline. Look for the most realistic one. Principle 4. Understand the rules before you need them. Principle 5. Never let someone else's urgency become your urgency. Principle 6. Trust should always be supported by verification. Principle 7. The best investment isn't the one with the biggest discount. It's the one that still makes sense when life changes. If you have watched this entire video, I hope you noticed something. I didn't create this video to scare you away from pre-construction. Actually, I believe pre-construction can be one of the best ways to build long-term wealth in Mexico. Some of my clients have achieved incredible appreciation because they purchased the right project at the right time. The goal isn't to avoid pre-construction. The goal is to understand it, because uncertainty disappears when knowledge increases. If you are currently evaluating a pre-construction project, or you have already signed a contract and you are wondering whether everything is progressing normally, I would be happy to help. As both a Puerto Vallarta real estate advisor and an attorney, I help Americans and Canadians understand contracts, evaluate developers, review legal documents, and identify potential risks, and make informed decisions before investing in Mexico. If you would like to schedule a private consultation, you will find my email and contact information in the description below. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe, and see you in the next video.